Hello everyone, this is your junior high school math teacher and I'm going to discuss the third week lesson in Mathematics 9 and it is the Midline Theorem. At the end of this video, you should be able to, or after you watch the video, you should be able to state the Midline Theorem, apply or use this theorem to find the length of related segments. Then the last objective, participate actively during the discussion. Now for this material, you would be able to investigate, analyze, and solve problems involving trapezoids, which will be discussed on the next video after this. So, solve problems involving trapezoids through appropriate and accurate representation. For our next slide, let us now start with a discussion about the midline theorem. Now, what is this midline theorem? Now, suppose I have here a triangle, and this triangle is named as triangle ABC. You will notice that from this triangle, we consider the midpoints of the two sides. For the first side, whose name is segment AB, we consider a midpoint M. And when we say midpoint of a segment, it is a point that bisects a segment or divides the segment into two equal parts. Meaning, if this is your midpoint M, it follows that segment AM is congruent to segment MB. Similarly, on the other side, which is named as segment AC, we have a midpoint N. And just like midpoint M of this side, N divides AC or segment AC into two congruent parts. And these are AN and NC, which are equal in length. Now, going back to midpoints M and N, you will notice that these 2 points or midpoints are connected by this segment. And the name of the segment connecting those 2 midpoints is segment MN. And this segment is actually the midline, or in other reference material, it is also called the mid-segment. Okay? Yan. So, consider triangle ABC again. Points M and N are the midpoints of their respective segments. And these are segment AB and segment AC, which are the two sides of triangle ABC. Then, a segment that joins the midpoints of the two sides is segment MN, or we call it the midline or the mid-segment. Okay, so anong dapat nating matutunan dito? Now, actually, nandito na yung theorem, which states that a segment joining the midpoints of the two sides of the triangle, which is parallel to the third side, has a length which is 1/2 the length of the third side. Yun ang ibig sabihin nun. So, mathematically speaking, segment MN, which is parallel to segment BC, is half the length of the third side BC. Okay? So, yun yung tinatawag nating midline theorem. Now, if we're going to add some more details from this triangle, okay, the midline is parallel to the third side as indicated by the arrowhead marks on their respective segments, indicating that midline or mid-segment is parallel to the third side. And at the same time, the length of this midline is 1/2 the length of this third side. For example, okay, so we just put some details on the two sides which are separated by this point M. Likewise, AN and the NC have identical slash marks, indicating that the two segments of segment AC are congruent or equal in length. Now, suppose the length of the midline is 6. It follows that the length of the third side, which is parallel to the midline, is what? 12. Okay? Yun ang ibig sabihin nun. Now, so if we're going to interpret the midline theorem, we can verbally state this theorem, and that is the segment whose endpoints are the midpoints of the two sides of the triangle is parallel to the third side and has a length equal to half the length of the third side. Okay? So that is the midline theorem. Next. The next theorem can be proven by using the midline theorem. The next theorems. And what are these theorems? Okay, we have two. The first one is, if the consecutive midpoints of the sides of a quadrilateral are joined together, then the quadrilateral formed is a parallelogram. For the second statement, if three or more parallel lines are cut off congruent segments on one transversal, then they cut off congruent segments on every transversal. So let us expound each of these two next theorems. We go back to the first theorem, number 1. Okay, ano ibig sabihin nito? Okay, here goes. Yan. Let us retain the first theorem. Again, let us read. If the consecutive midpoints of the sides of a quadrilateral are joined together, then the quadrilateral formed is a parallelogram. Okay, ganito yan. Suppose we are going to roughly draw a quadrilateral. Neither of the two sides are parallel. So basically, what I'm about to draw here is a general quadrilateral. So if you could still remember the general quadrilateral, it is defined as quadrilateral with no pair of parallel sides. Okay. Okay. Now, let us assume that this quadrilateral has no pair of opposite sides that are parallel. And let us try to consider a midpoint from each of these four sides. But first, let us name this quadrilateral as quadrilateral QUAD. And at this point, let us consider the midpoint of each of its four sides. And we connect those midpoints by four segments, indicating these segments are the blue segments. And what do we have here? Another quadrilateral. And let us name this as quadrilateral PRLE. Okay. You will notice that the quadrilateral, the blue quadrilateral formed is actually what? A parallelogram. Okay? Meaning, point P, point R, point L, and E are the midpoints of their respective sides of the bigger quadrilateral QUAD. Okay? So, yun ang ibig sabihin nun. Okay? Again, if we consider a quadrilateral with no pair of opposite sides that are parallel, now if we are going to join those midpoints by segments, particularly the four segments formed a quadrilateral which is a parallelogram. Ito ang ibig sabihin nitong theorem na to. Okay? Yan. Next, for our second statement, let us go back to statement number 2 or theorem number 2. Okay? If three or more parallel lines cut off congruent segments on one transversal, then they cut off congruent segments on every transversal. Okay, so paano to? Okay, let us say we have three transversals. Okay? And from these three transversals, merong dumaan na lines. Okay, so first let us name each of these transversals by a small letter t. So t sub 1 is the first transversal, t sub 2 is the second transversal, and t sub 3 is the third transversal. Now, again, suppose these three transversals are cut off by three parallel lines. Meaning, these three lines are equidistant to one another. So, ano ibig sabihin yan? And these three parallel lines are named as L sub 1, L sub 2, L sub 3. And you will notice that these three parallel lines intersect the three transversals at how many points? There are actually 9 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, let us name those 9 points as point A, B, and C. Now, on the second transversals, the points of intersections are at point D, E, F. And for the third transversals, the points of intersections are at X, Y, and Z. So, ano ibig sabihin nito? So, the three parallel lines cut off one transversal into two equal segments. So, kung ano ang ginawa ng tatlong lines na to sa isang transversal, ganun din ang gagawin nilang tatlo sa iba pang transversal. So, it follows that DE is congruent to EF. Similarly, XY will be congruent to XA. Yun ang ibig sabihin nitong theorem number 2, no? Yun. As indicated by the slash marks, identical slash marks on those two segments from each transversal. Okay? So again, if three or more lines are cut off congruent segments on one transversal, then the same three parallel lines cut off two congruent segments on every other transversal. Okay? Yun. Yun. Halimbawa, segment AB is 4. What do you think is the length of segment BC? It's also 4. Similarly, let's say segment EF is 7. It follows that segment DE is also 7. And on the third transversal T sub 3, if YZ is 11, what do you think is XY? It's also 11. Okay? So kung walang tanong, we go to the next slide. Okay, so at this point, let us now try to apply what we have just learned about midline theorem to this set of examples. Number 1, suppose we have points M and N, and they are the midpoints of the sides of triangle ABC. A segment joining the midpoints M and N is segment MN. So obviously, ito ay midline. And according to the given, MN has a length of x plus 15. And BC has a length of 4x minus 12. Now, we are going to find what would be the length of segment BC. Now, for us to analyze this, let us have the solution and the illustration. Yun. Now, suppose this is triangle ABC, and on the first two sides, we consider the midpoint. On the first side, whose name is segment AC, we have point M, and on the other side, segment AB, we have point N. And these two midpoints are connected by a segment, which is named as segment MN. Now, according to the given, the length of this segment is x plus 15. And the length of segment BC, which happens to be the third side of triangle ABC, is 4x minus 12. So again, how can we find the length of segment BC? Okay. So for our solution, we apply the theorem or the midline theorem. Now, according to the theorem, if the midline is parallel to the third side, it follows that its length is half the length of the third side. So mathematically speaking, that is mn is equal to 1 half BC. Now, from this formed equation, let us replace these two segments by their equivalent length. For mn, that is what? X plus 15, which is equal to 1 half of the length of BC, and BC is replaced by what? 4x minus 12. So at this point, we formed a linear equation in one variable. So from this formed equation, we find the value of x. So solve for x. So what do? We clear the denominator by multiplying both sides by 2. So the left side becomes what? 2 times the quantity x plus 15. And since the right side is also multiplied by 2, mawawala yung denominator na 2. What will be left here on the right side is the expression inside the parentheses, which is 4x minus 12. Now, simplifying the left side, we have 2x plus 30, which is equal to the right side, which is 4x minus 12. So, transpose 4x, I think, to the left and 30 to the right, isolating those terms in terms of x, and separate them with the constant term to the right. Okay? Yun. Or better yet, on the left side, dito natin ilalagay yung constant term para ma-maintain yung positive value nila. And on the right side, dito natin ililipat yung 2. So, 2x para maging minus 2x. So, the resulting equation is 30 plus 12 equals 4x minus 2x. So, at this point, the equation becomes what? 42, which is equal to 2x, and divide both sides by 2 to get the value of x. It follows that 21 is equal to x, or x is equal to 21. Okay? So thus, we can now compute for the length of BC by substituting the value of x from 4x minus 12. So BC at this point is what? 4 times x, which is 21, the value that we have just obtained, minus 12. So 4 times 21 is what? 84 minus 12 is 72. And this is our answer. The length of segment BC is 72. Okay? If no questions asked, we can continue with this presentation. Going to example number 2. Okay, about this one. In triangle PQR, points X, Y, and Z are the midpoints of segment PQ, QR, and segment PR, respectively. Or sa Tagalog, ayon sa pagkakasunod-sunod. Okay, so, suppose the sides of triangle PQR are given, and those are PQ equals 24, QR is 30, and PR is 18. What do you think, or how do we find the perimeter of triangle XYZ? Sige, so for our solution, let us illustrate triangle PQR. So this is triangle PQR. Yan. And considering the midpoint of each sides of the bigger triangle, and these are point X, point Y, point Z of segment PQ, QR, and PR respectively. Ayan. Take note, binigay ang length ng sides ng mas malaking triangle. Pero ang pinapahanap dito ay yung perimeter ng mas maliit na triangle, which is triangle XYZ. So, paano to? Okay, solution. Given those sides of the bigger triangle, 24 for PQ, 30 for QR, and 18 for PR. Ano ibig sabihin yan? So, if PQ is 24, therefore, YZ, so PQ, YZ, okay, this one, which is the midline of this triangle with respect to PQ, it follows that YZ is 12. Now for QR, where is QR? This one. If this is 30, therefore, with respect to this side, XY is the midline, which is what? Half of this segment. So kung 30 ito naman ang 15. Okay? Then PR, where is PR? This one. Now with respect to this side, it follows that XY is the midline. And if this is 18, XY would be what? 9. And at this point, we have just determined the length of the sides of the smaller triangle XYZ. And from this one, we can now easily get the perimeter of the smaller triangle by adding the length of the obtained lengths of the three sides. So thus the perimeter of triangle XYZ is what? The length of segment XY plus the length of XZ plus the length of YZ. So that is 12 plus 15 plus 9, and that will give us 36 as our answer. Okay? So ito sagot. Okay? Okay, so this is our answer. If you don't have any question, let us continue with the next slide. Okay, this one. Now, this is an activity for you to work on. So, I think I'll be giving you 10 minutes to come up with the answer. So, for our first activity, points M and N are the midpoints of segment AC and segment AB respectively. So, we're going to complete each statement. Okay, so these are the given. And you may start now. Okay, I think your time is up. It's time now to reveal the answer from each of these items. Number 1, MN is 12, then BC is what? 24. Number 2, AB is 12. What is AN? 6. Number 3, MC is 12.5. So what is AC? 25. Number 4, if BC is 37, how long is MN? 18.5. Number 5, AB is 2x. What is NB? It's x. If AM is y, what is the length of MC? It's also y. Number 7, MN is equal to x minus 1. So what do you think would be the length of BC? It's 2x minus 2. If AC is 3x plus 6, what is AM? 3 halves x plus 3. Number 9, if MN is x minus 2 and BC is x plus 10, so what do you think is BC? 24. Number 10, if AC is x plus 20 and AM is 3x plus 5, what is MC? It's 11. Okay? Okay, so if you don't have any question, so that this is where we end our topic. And we'll see you next time.